Okay, so this is the 1-5 notes for Algebra 1. We're going to look at adding and subtracting polynomials. So, and each time I'm going to show you a couple of different methods you can use, and which one you choose to use will be totally up to you, which one makes the most sense. So let's say we're trying to solve 2x plus 3 plus 5x plus 2, and we want to simplify that. Remember, all we're doing on all of these is simplifying. We're trying to get like terms together. Okay, and when we do that, there's a couple of ways we can do that. We can either do it by using a vertical or a horizontal setup. Now, a vertical setup is just like back in elementary. When you were told to add 3 plus 2, you could write it this way or you could write it horizontally. The same thing applies in algebra. You can write your sets of terms in horizontally. The key is to line up the things that look the same. Well, 3 and 2 are both numbers. They don't have any variables on them, so they would line up. The 2x and 5x both have x as t-shirts. They're on the same team, so they should be in the same line. And then all you do is add the numbers together. So 3 plus 2, 5, and it is a positive 5. Now we do the other side, 2x plus 5x. Well, that's 7, and x, they keep their t-shirt on. So when you're playing football, you don't change your jersey, right? So you don't do this, you do the same thing with algebra. X is like the t-shirt, it's the jersey. They keep the jerseys on even when they're in their answer. On the other side of it, you can do a horizontal. And whenever you do a horizontal, the first step is if there is a plus sign between them, we just ignore the um, parentheses and we write it down without it. We don't have to worry about changing signs as long as this is addition. Now what you're going to do is underline things or box things or circle things or do something that or highlight in different colors so that you're identifying things that go together. Okay, so I am going to underline one underline under X's and two underlines under numbers that don't have X's. I could have used boxes. When you get a lot of different terms on there, you might use a lot of different choices. So now we're going to rewrite our equation doing the lines first. So I always start with the highest exponent, which in this case is x. X has a 1, even though you don't see it. And we're going to rewrite all my x's together. And then I'm going to rewrite all my numbers together. So I'm basically just regrouping in kind of like I did over here. And then we say, well, what's 2x plus 5x? That's 7x. What's 3 plus 2? That's 5. So whichever method makes the most sense to you, you're welcome to use. I do want you to write your method down though. So basically one of the things that you're going to need to do is to have paper where and put it into your binder so that you can write down problem 1 on 1-5 assignment. You did it this way. If you do the same way every time, that is perfectly okay with me. So a couple of notes, pretend the x or any variable with any exponent is like a t-shirt. You want to keep them all in the same team. So if there is x and then an x squared and then an x cubed, those are all different t-shirts, all different teams. Don't stick them together. Second thing you want to do is to always put your answers in exponential order. So if they're written like this, where the exponent is 2, 1, 0, because anything that doesn't have an x is a 0, then you need to rearrange those so that the exponents are in the right order. But be careful because you don't want to lose negatives when you pull them down. Okay? All right, so here's your turn problems, and I'm going to give you a moment to do it. Write these down in your notebook, and then you're going to choose the answer you believe that is correct. Okay, so let's do this problem together to make sure you got it right. So I'm going to use, this time I'm going to use the vertical method. I'll be honest with you, it's the one I like the most, so that's what I'm going to do. And just to kind of keep things straight, I'm going to kind of divide it up into two groups like that, okay? So the first thing I want to do is the group that has the most terms, that's what I want to put on top because that's going to be the most things that are going to match up. So I'm going to bring this part of it down and rewrite it. But I'm going to write it in order of how I want my answer to look. So my 2x has to go in front of the 5x, and then 10 has to go in the back. I'm just doing the step I would do at the very end in the process. That way everything's already in that order I want it to be. Now I'm going to take my other ones and I'm going to match up. Well, 2x squared, 3x squared, they match. They're in the same team. 14, they're on x. They are in the same team. But I don't have anybody in that team. Nobody got added to it. So I'll go ahead and put a plus 0 in just to save places. And now I'm going to add. So 10 plus 0 is 10. 5 plus 14 is 19. And don't forget his t-shirt. And it's positive because 5 and 14 were both positive. 2 and 3, 2 plus 3 is 5. And don't forget his t-shirt, which is different than the X's t-shirt. Okay, let's do second problem. Okay, this time we're going to use a horizontal setup. And as you notice, they're already grouped, but we can drop the grouping and rewrite it. Or we can just say, I don't really need those. Shortcut. Now we want to get things together that are the same. So start with your biggest exponent. What's my biggest exponent? It is x squared. So I'm going to underline x squared with one underline. Now I'm going to go with all my x's. Well, I see an x here, I see an x here, and I see an x here. But I also see a negative in front. And guess what? Negatives need to be boxed in because if we don't recognize negatives, we're going to have issues. And finally, we have another solo little number out here, which we'll put 3 blocks under. Okay? Now we're going to do the same thing we did before. Start with your biggest and rewrite it so that we have those together. Making sure we're keeping the same team together. Now we're going to do the red team. Red team is all X's. And now we'll have the blue team has just those 2 people. And now we add up the teams. So -3 plus 5. Well, 5 take away 3 gives me 2, x squared. -5 minus 3, so that's really more like adding. So that's 5 plus 3 is 8. And then minus 4 more gives me negative 12. Okay, and then that plus 2 comes down. So my final answer should be 2x squared minus 12x plus 2. Okay, so that is how you're going to do it. Again, whether you use the horizontal method or the vertical method, I'm okay with either one. Now let's look at subtraction. So with subtraction, there's a rule that says you have to distribute the negative to each of the terms in the second set of the parentheses. Basically, change their signs of everything inside the second set, and then you can add. So on vertical, you want to be very careful to remember to put the parentheses around because you're going to have to rewrite this before you can actually do the last step. So we're going to just rewrite our top the way it is, nothing changed. On the bottom, we're going to distribute that negative. Basically, change every sign you see. I see a plus, I'm going to make a minus. I see a minus, I'm making a plus. And now we can do adding just like we were doing before. 1 plus 3, 4, both positive, so the answer is positive. -3 plus -2, that's -5x because they were both negative. 5 minus 3, that's going to be 2x. And we know it's positive because 5 is bigger than 3 and 5 is positive. Okay? Now we're going to try it with the horizontal method. Same thing, we have to first distribute that negative, changing every sign. When we do that, we can drop all of the parentheses, but we have to remember to change those signs when we rewrite it down. +3 becomes -3x squared. +2 becomes -2x. -3 becomes +3. If you don't do that step, you will get it wrong. Now we do the same thing we did with horizontal before. Adding doesn't change. We're going to underline what we have in common, but I'm going to box it in because I had a negative. We're going to box in negatives, all the same color. If you're using the same one color, try using different versions of boxes. Or don't box them in and just make sure you watch your negatives. Okay, so the red team in this case is 5x squared and negative 3x squared, which I can go ahead and do that subtracting. The green team is negative 3x and negative 2x, which I can go ahead and do that subtracting. And the blue team is 1 and 3, and I can go ahead and add those. So I can get all of my answers, and we end up with the same answer regardless of which way you do it. Okay, your turn. So go ahead and write this into your notebook and use either method you want, and then in a moment I will do one or the other methods. Okay, so this time I'm going to use the horizontal first. So again, the first step, no matter if it's horizontal or not, or vertical, you have to do distributing. So I'm going to rewrite my problem, dropping my parentheses, and changing my signs. Positive becomes negative, positive becomes negative, negative becomes positive. Okay, now we're going to underline the teams that go together. Okay, so x squared gets underlined once, x gets underlined twice. They're a different team, and the blue team is underlined 3 times. So that's another way to do it. Okay, so let's see. Pink team is 5x squared minus 5x squared. Well, what's 5x squared minus 5? What's 5 minus 5? That's 0. So that's going to be 0x squared. We'll get rid of that in a minute, but we're going to have to write it down for a second. Red team is 3x minus 3x. That ends up being negative 6x. And then blue team is 2 plus 2, which is 4. So what's our final answer? Well, our final answer, 0 goes away, right? So it's negative 6x plus 4. That's our final answer. Okay? All right, last one. Go ahead and write this one into your notebook, and in a moment we will solve it together. And choose your answer, and then we'll solve it together. Okay, so we're going to use the vertical. And again, we're going to start by rewriting the first. Both of them have the same number of variables or terms. So I'm going to go ahead and write the first one first. And actually, because this one had the minus in front of it, that has to go second because I still have to do my distributing. So I'm going to do negative x squared. Oops, it's not x cubed, it's x squared. So I have to make sure to line it up with the correct one. Negative times negative is a positive 5x. Well, 5x wasn't on my list above, so I'm going to put it to the side for right now. I will fix it in a minute. And then my negative times a positive is negative 5x, or negative 5. So this is not written in perfect order, but it does give us everything we need lined up. So we have 14x cubed because there's a plus 0x cubed here. We didn't write it, but it's still there. Negative 2 plus negative 1 is negative 3x squared. Now we need to get our 5x or actually we'll just keep adding down. 3 minus 5 is negative 2, and then 5x. But we're not done just yet because we're not in perfect order. We're not doing 3, 2, 1, 0. So we're going to go ahead and do our answer, writing it in the correct order. So 14x squared cubed minus 3x squared plus 5x minus 2. And that's our final answer. Okay,